they are. So, my name's Tim Orton. I work for Crown Commercial Service. As you're all aware, we're part of the Cabinet Office, and our remit within government is to save money and make sure that what is offered is fit for purpose. I hate phones as well. Right, so what I'm going to talk about is RM 1045 Network Services. It is the framework that has replaced the existing PSN frameworks. And you'll see on there lots of words, what is happening, what we're trying to do. And that we built this as a multi-supplier framework. We've had continued engagement with the market and with our colleagues in GDS. We've made it a compliant route to market. We have, if we were to take the networking element, we have 26 suppliers. A significant number of those are SMEs. So it's been built to allow much more flexibility compared to the old PSN frameworks, and we allow all government departments, all wider public sector, which includes health, education, people like the BBC, Channel 4, they're all eligible to use it. There are suppliers in there that can deliver just about anything that you require. We've also looked at different ways for you to procure, because going out to market under PSN, we know has been fairly laborious. It's always a full further competition other than mobile. So we've built this to enable suppliers to create catalogues that they can upload, and you can then direct award against that catalogue. We are also allowing what we're calling short form further competitions, where your requirements aren't hard and difficult. Then you can send those to the suppliers and we expect fairly quick turnaround on those. Or there is the full further competition, which can take anything up to 3 months. So you have the choices in which way you wish to go to market. As I said, we've encouraged different organisations. We have the likes of the Big Four, Virgin, BT, and then going down we have smaller organisations, Daisy, and 1 or 2 others. So what we've done, in keeping with PSN, we've tried to keep the lots fairly similar. So we've created a 10-lot framework, and in each of those lots we have built a core component. So for argument's sake, lot 1, the core component is the ability for an end user to connect from end to end across a data network. We haven't stipulated the technology, so it means it could be provided any which way. So what is this replacing? It is replacing PSN connectivity, RM 860, PSN services, and telephony services, which expired earlier this year. We are also using it to replace our legacy frameworks, which some of you will remember. You've got GTC01, there are still customers on the old GCAT. So, benefits for yourselves: reduce the timescales and the cost of procurement. I also know that as a previous employee of a major telco, anything that came in via an ITT, we would have to go through internal governance and get it signed off. So for some of the bigger deals that came in, that could cost £100,000. What we've done in this is tried to do away with a lot of that by having catalogues and short form. The bidders like it because their costs are lowered. Those that are using it like it because the time it takes to procure is reduced and it's a lot less onerous. We looked at contract lengths and we have built it so that you can take a contract under a full further competition of any duration up to 5 years, with the option of an extension of up to 24 months. If you run a direct award, that is up to 36 months, with the option of up to a further 24 as an extension. So from the vast range of suppliers that we now have, they are able to provide much more flexibility and they give you a lot more choice. We have a number of suppliers on the framework that cover every single lot. So in that way, if you were looking at, for argument's sake, LAN, WAN, unified comms, you could do a cross-lot competition. So that's one competition covering all those lots. And you then only select the bidders that are in all of those 3 lots. So although there might be 25 suppliers in each lot, it may be that for the 3 or 4 that you require, there's only 10. So it makes putting the competition together perhaps slightly easier, but it certainly makes evaluation easier because you're not getting 26 replies. We have predefined terms and conditions that we sat down with TSOL to write. You are able to change those terms and conditions via a full competition. If you use direct award or short form, you can change the country of law, and that's about it. What we didn't want to do was provide something where if a bidder uploaded a catalogue, you change the terms and conditions that he's willing to offer it on. We've set minimum standards and the bidder is able to provide pricing for that or an uplift. It is entirely up to him. Every one of the suppliers has been vetted financially. Those that were under what we would have considered a recognised credit score, we've been out to the market and we have made them get bank guarantees, because we don't want the supplier on a framework delivering a service to you who goes bust next week and you haven't got service. We want recompense so that we can find some way of continuing that service. So as I've said, direct award, very quick, very flexible. You build your statement of requirements. You then look at the catalogues. You see which bidders are offering your requirement. You can go to that bidder. You can ask him how many he could provide in a certain amount of time. So if you were doing a wide area network, you might have 50 connections you need. He might turn around and say, well, actually, I can only do 1 a month for the next 3 months because I'm exceptionally busy. You can then look at one of the other suppliers. You're quite within your rights to go out and ask them, because there's no point in signing a contract if you can't get service for 15 months. So we've tried to do it on value for money and the best value for money. We understand that sometimes you require something better, and obviously there are other ways to do that via the further competition. So the direct award process is fully ODU compliant. The main one that we consider is for more complicated requirements is a general further competition, where you scope your full requirement. It can cover multiple lots. You then issue it out to the marketplace and wait for the responses. And as I've said, you can modify the terms and conditions. We've had organisations that have looked at our T's and C's and decided that, well, actually I require better than this, and so they put it in. And only those bidders that are willing to bid for that will respond. So the short form is something that really is there if it's not available quickly on the catalogue. You can go to them. We would normally expect turnaround on that within 10 days. So that's not too bad. So you can use our portal. You can use your own portals. We really don't mind. So what we've said, we've divided it into lots. We've tried to reflect what the market and customers have asked for. We've hopefully got enough suppliers to service the demand that we know is there. We've reduced the barriers of entry for all SMEs. If I give you an example, 2 days after the framework went live, we had an order come in from a major health hospital who placed a direct award for LAN equipment for £250,000, simply because that supplier had taken the time to respond to the requirement for the scenario, but built in all the other types of services that he could add on a rate card. So you could then direct award. I was concerned, so I went through the order 100% with what the customer asked for and what the bidder was providing. It was 100% satisfactory. So we're hoping that everything is technology agnostic. You shouldn't care whether you've got Cisco routers or whether you've got D-Link. If it provides the service and it provides the SLAs that you're looking for, then that's fine. The framework will itself support PSN and non-PSN requirements. So if you wanted a leased line, for argument's sake, from point A to B, you don't want a PSN compliant one if you're not going to touch the government conveyance network. It's just a link. If you decided you needed one to connect to the PSN because you wanted to have direct access into National Archives, then you may require one, dependent upon what you're doing. If you're providing services, then yes, you would. If you were just going to consume a service, you would buy a link that's non-PSN compliant, probably via the internet, and go into National Archives that way. There is one area on there that has confused just about everyone, and that's agency services. We built agency services on the fact that if you are an organisation that do not have a huge amount of personnel to carry out your purchasing for you, you could run one single competition and ask for agency within that competition, and only those bidders that have passed the agency test would be able to bid. But you could then give them the rights to run all your other procurements. And we have insisted that all of that would be done behind Chinese walls, simply because that bidder has skin in the game if it's his personnel that are writing your requirements for other bids. But it does work. We have got organisations using it. As I've mentioned, you've got cross-lot, which can make life easy. it is entirely up to yourselves as organisations whether you run cross-lot or whether you run single lot. Single lot can give you better pricing. However, you have the increased management overhead, and that can be significant. So we have in here the lot structures. So as it says, data access, the LANs, telephony, which is lines and minutes and take over existing equipment and manage it, inbound, 0800s, 0300s, whatever else you use, IP telephony. IP telephony can also include contact centres where the staff who are running the contact centre for you are employees of your organisation. It is not designed for outsourced staff. And then lot 6 is the same as it is today, that's mobile. However, it does now include the likes of Airwave, who will provide you with a mobile service or with their Tetra service. Lot 7, paging. We understand that certainly in the health service, paging is used in great detail and depth. Video conferencing, audio conferencing, and then lot 10, as we are calling integrated comms. Now within lot 10 is the only lot that can encompass any of the core components from other lots. So lot 10 can incorporate lot 6, lot 8, lot 9 and lot 5, because it can provide those as part of the full solution. And we are seeing organisations who are embedding all of that under their unified comms. So the scope of the lots, obviously supply, install, management, maintenance, all the bits that you would hope are there. There's migration and transition. TUPE is obviously a concern for lots of organisations, so it's in there, but that can only be done via full further competition, because only you as the organisation know what staff you've got that will need to be TUPE'd. And the services will comply with the security requirements that you describe. So I can go through all these separately if you wish. I'm sure you understand what they all are, and the slides will be available to you as well. So, any questions on that? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Paul Weiser. So Tim has told you about the focus of Crowd Commercial Service, which is on savings. It's on commercial benefits to the public sector, and on the different routes to market that you can employ through network services. So you have the choice of direct award, which is very much the way that this has been structured. You also have a choice of further competition. Now, what we now do is to take this a stage further, where for commodities, for commoditized procurements, we do this for you. So we have a dedicated aggregation team in Crown Commercial Service, where we deliver aggregated procurements. We run the procurements for the same services. So we achieve commercial benefits. We're obviously focused on savings, we're measured on savings, but we recognise that savings include whole life costs. They are whole life costs. So we talk about commercial benefits, because you're going to get significant benefits from procurements as well as just savings. So there are two strands to this. We reduce procurement costs because we're doing it for you. We're running the procurement, we're developing the documentation, we're running the procurement, we're setting the standardised evaluation criteria. But also, through aggregation, we are seeking to reduce costs through aggregated volumes. And this obviously works best, it works most understandably for commoditized items, such as PCs, laptops, printers, and so on and so forth. In the network space, it's been seen to work very effectively indeed for mobile procurement, and to a lesser extent for fixed voice procurement, and we're working on various other standardized types of procurement, possibly even unified comms, because again, everyone essentially is looking for the same basic set of things. So to date, the team has achieved more than £22 million worth of direct savings purely through aggregation through a number of these frameworks. So that's using the old PSN frameworks, the RM4, RM4098 PSN services, but also using the hardware and software technology frameworks, which you may well be familiar with. So just to take a few examples of this, mobile services, a couple of these for a number of organisations across the whole of the public sector achieve savings of 24% for one of them for one large central government customer. Most recently, although the NFC numbers don't represent the dates at which they actually occurred. So NFC 10 was actually the most recent of the mobile services procurements. And that was also the most successful. That achieved a total of 76% savings, dramatic savings, against the prices in the RM4098 catalogue. So basically, the mobile providers were falling over themselves to try and win that business. So that was a great success. We've run a number of hardware procurements, and we've run other things. So we ran an SMS procurement specifically for the health service to replace something which had been run by the Health and Social Services Information Centre, UCISA-NG, who run procurements for health. They stopped doing that, so we took that over and ran a sector-specific procurement, which is going to deliver 2.2 million savings over the 2-year initial period of that framework. And another example, a few more examples of specific procurement. So street lanterns was a very specific one, which we were asked to run. So we run both on a proactive basis, running these procurements on a regular basis. So we run mobile procurements roughly every 3 to 4 months. We've just gone to market with one, NFC 34, and we're now looking for expressions of interest in the next one, which is going to take place in January or February. Now, I know you've got some interest potentially in an education-specific procurement. I know you've got particular requirements for mobiles, including things like coverage. So all of that we can take into account, because we don't just do purely standardized procurements for the whole public sector. We can also do bespoke procurements. The one thing that we do is we aggregate. So we run these services for a number of different organizations to get the benefits of aggregation or consolidation. And we don't charge for the service. It's a free service. So mobile services, we've run 6 procurements, savings between, as you saw on the previous slide, 24 and 76%, and both general across the whole of the public sector and also specific to particular segments. The structure is designed to make the process of coming along to this mobile framework as easy as possible. So the contracts will co-terminate, so that next time round it'll make the procurement easier. We can run a chunk of procurements on a regular basis. You can migrate over a 2-year period, so we don't require you to have a big bang migration. The contract includes a phased migration. There are a number of building blocks to the different kinds of tariffs. So there's a basic call tariff, which is SIM only and zero-line rental, and calls and data are priced according to a catalogue. But in addition, there are bolt-ons, so you can build your own particular tariff. So the most obvious one is a call-inclusive tariff, so voice and text on an all-inclusive basis. Then there are data bundles. There are shared data bundles where the data is shared amongst a number of users. International bundles, both for voice and for data. For bolt-ons, there's a 30-day contract period. So you can take a bolt-on and you can cease it after 30 days. So there's a lot of flexibility built into this. So you can, although it's an aggregated procurement, within that you've got the capability to build your own type of procurement. It's very flexible. And you have the choice of including or not including device and equipment credits. So for each of the bolt-ons, there are two types. There's one that includes £50 worth of device and equipment credit per user, and the contracts that don't. So you can choose whether you want to do that or not. We do require commitment before we issue the request for proposal, the ITT, because in the past we've had situations where we build up this procurement and we get bids based on a number of customers, and then customers start dropping out, and therefore the basis of the procurement is no longer valid. So to avoid that, we now do require full commitment before at the point at which we issue the RFP. So what we require is your commitment that if the pricing is acceptable, then you will commit to that contract. Obviously, it's very important that you do ensure, if you're engaging in this, you must ensure that the coverage of all providers will meet your requirements, because if you engage in this, then you are committing to accept the provider who has the lowest price, and therefore you must make sure that all the providers in this competition are able to meet your coverage criteria. So if you need coverage in Northern Ireland, or if you need coverage in the remotest parts of the Scottish Highlands or islands, they need to ensure that all of those suppliers can meet your coverage requirements before you actually engage in this. We're also looking at fixed voice procurements, and we're looking at this to particularly for customers who are on some of our previous frameworks and are running telephony services, telephony fixed voice contracts under those. And there's a particular focus on SIP trunks, which I'm sure that all of you are very well aware of, and the savings that can be had from those, potentially up to 75% on line costs. We've run a successful pilot that's actually demonstrated indicative savings of 65% on overall costs for a fixed voice service. So not just mobile, but also looking at fixed voice, and we're looking to run another of the fixed voice procurements in the near future. And we're also looking at future technology hardware procurements and potentially unified comms procurements. We're working on potential standardized definitions for unified comms requirements, and whether that would actually be feasible and on what basis. And as one of the speakers earlier mentioned, there's a lot of commonality here, and there's a lot of the concept of the license cost per user on an incremental basis is one that's being built up, and we can therefore potentially build up a similar structure with a basic feature set and then bolt-ons. So potentially that has considerable value in developing a unified communications offering. So just to summarise then what we do, for these aggregated procurements, what CCS does for you is to prepare the procurement documentation, prepare a whole set of templates which you can then fill in with your specific requirements, run the procurement, run the evaluation, run the supplier communication element, obviously with a great deal of interaction with yourself all the time, because the requirements are all yours. Run the evaluation, conduct the evaluation process and an e-auction if that's appropriate, and then conduct the award process and initiate and manage the order process. Obviously the part that you have to do is to create the specific requirements, and if there are any specific evaluation criteria that you need, then that's still very much in your remit. And we can bespoke these to an extent to your requirements. So the outcome from an aggregated procurement does not necessarily have to be one single supplier for all the participants. It might be, and in the mobile scenario, it has been, and in many of the hardware scenarios it has been, but equally we can run a consolidated procurement which will deliver a different supplier for each of the participants, or possibly for groups of participants. So it will still be a consolidated procurement, but it will be on behalf of a number of different customers with different requirements, each of which is articulated in a separate set of templates. So we can do it either way. So it doesn't have to be a totally commoditized, it can be a partially commoditized or even a non-commoditized procurement, as long as there are a number of organizations looking for more or less the same thing or similar things. So if you're interested in these aggregated procurements, then please think about it, and please contact us. Look at our website. There's an aggregated procurement website. If you're interested, then we're required to initially sign a memorandum of understanding, which is your intent to participate in the process and to authorize us to start developing the procurement on your behalf. And then finally, at the point at which we actually issue the RFP, then we'll ask you to sign more than that, your intent to purchase, provided that the outcome is satisfactory. So, are there any questions?